And welcome back to the Factor Uncensored. Have you ever had a side gig, a side hustle? Well, our accountant shows you how to save money from the IRS. First of all, explain to us in employment terminology, what is a gig?
A gig could be, I like to call it a side hustle, where someone, besides their regular job, maybe they do something part-time to generate extra income. Because a lot of people today, of course, are struggling to pay their bills. So maybe you're knowledgeable in a particular area. In fact, I had a gentleman come in this morning that he does physical training for a company. And he doesn't work on the weekends, but he sees some private people. And so he's able to generate some extra income. So there's different expenses that people can write off with that. One could be, for example, mileage. He drives to the people's home and does work at their house. So you're allowed 67 cents a mile. So you want to keep a record, of your mileage. Maybe when he goes to see him, he goes through a toll road. So the toll expense is a deduction. Maybe there might be a parking expense for someone. Maybe you have business cards, advertising. If you do enough of work, you might be able to write off your cell phone. And of course, if you do a lot of work out of your home, you could potentially have a home office expense, and that also could possibly include your internet charges. And then, of course, you might have materials, supplies. You might have to, maybe for some work, you use a computer. So you might be able to write off your computer, office supplies, postage. There are a lot of different things. But of course, if you do have a home office, you have to use it regularly and exclusively. You can't just use the dining room table part-time or use the kitchen table. It has to be a separate dedicated space that's primarily used, as an office. Maybe this particular gentleman also does some training at his home. And so he has a particular area, pardon me, he has a particular area at his home that he's able to use dedicated for his business.
And for those and we want to be very clear here and specific, a gig is not a part-time job where you work for somebody else. Would the gig be essentially your side business?
Business that you do. So it could be something that you do either part-time or full-time. For example, there are people on the weekend that are musicians. So they have a part-time gig, and they have expenses with that. Anywhere from their music, maybe voice training, different things. So there's different type of expenses for different industries. And it's important, IRS has information on their website, irs.gov, and it's always a good idea for someone that is going to have a gig on the side to maybe sit down with the professional and go over the allowable deductions they have and what records they need to keep, so that if they ever do get looked at by the IRS, they have the different receipts and information.
Got it. And so for those who want to go to the IRS website, which can be a job in itself, a side gig, is there anything that indicates or says side gig or gig work? Are they that hip yet at the IRS, or what are they calling it on the website if you're going to look for it?
Well, you might look on their website for their different they have publications on different areas, and they don't use the word specifically gig, and I've not seen in a publication, but it might be a part-time job, a part-time business that they might look at.
And that could save you a lot of money in taxes if it's done properly and following the law.
Right, and especially we're in the Fifth Circuit of the IRS here in Houston, and IRS likes paper, so they like the receipts. And if you charge things on a credit card, whether it be American Express, Visa, MasterCard, they want the physical piece of paper. And especially on a lot of things, you remember the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why.